have a lot of information for you today. Part of the reason that I planned to be here was to have some discussions with you about our finalized budget, but effect July 1 of 23, which means it impacts this next fiscal year. So at this point, we're keeping a close eye on what the state legislature is going to do. And if they implement some of those changes, we will have to make some pretty dramatic changes in a big hurry. The positive note for you, the graph that I gave you, if you remember last time I came and spoke, I explained that with the increase in interest rates, we saw an immediate reaction from the public in the amount of new housing starts we are seeing in the community. Norwalk, granted, we are growing as a percentage of the overall county. Our population has been growing pretty rapidly. The graph that you have in front of you, we try to predict the future as best we can because we have to adapt our finances for the upcoming year. The two lines that you see on this graph, and I apologize to the audience if they're interested, they can't see this, but I'll try to describe it as best I can. This is a graph that does, there's two lines. One line shows the average number of new housing starts that we have each month over the course of about a 6-year period. The red line on this graph reflects what happened in 2022. So what you see from January through April, we had a pretty big spike. We had a lot of housing starts. It was really, even with the slowdown at the end of the year, it was a record-setting year for us. The nerve-wracking part of that graph is once you get towards September, October, November, and even December, in some cases our permit numbers dropped off to only just 1 or 2 per year. So that was a pretty significant change. Now I will tell you, January numbers did come up a little bit, but still our trend is we're lower than what we've seen as an average for the past 5 years. So that's, I can't really say yet if that's a trend. We need to get through about the next 6 months, at least a year, before we start to make any full estimates on what's happening with that. What I will tell you and what I will leave you with is some good news. For fiscal year 24 upcoming, and I'm guessing you probably know this already, the city of Norwalk did some economic development incentives back in the early 2000s, 2003 to be specific, and it was a 20-year incentive program. Well, that TIF retires, which means there was $139 million in new value that rolls on the tax rolls. That not only impacts Norwalk, but that impacts the county as well. So that is a nice number for you folks this year. Next year, it's total assessed value of $110 million that comes on the tax rolls. So between just those 2 years, $250 million of new valuation. That definitely moves the needle for us and certainly helps to offset, do a more balance across all the taxpayers for the county, specifically for us within corporate limits. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have a quick question for you. Of that, I mean, that's really significant to see the increase in valuation and the resulting tax revenue. What portion of the, do you happen to know what portion of the total county receipts that would represent as far as the new valuation?
I probably should have done some better homework before I came. I don't know that percentage for the overall county.
I think it was about 68%. At least that was before the calculation with what the state is doing here, I believe. So I think it was about a 68% of the total new valuations coming into the county coffers, basically, as a result of Norwalk, which would then offset additional taxes, I guess you'd have to levy on other properties, including rural residents. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. Anytime that we see commercial and industrial growth, which is a tremendous factor in both of those numbers, commercial taxes are currently at 90, it's a 90%. So 90% of their taxable value is what is calculated to determine what they're paying in tax. Mm-hmm. The alternative to that would be residential. And again, I know that in the county you have more ag. We have such a small amount of ag. In the county area, it's a little bit different. But for us within corporate limits, it's two major. Either it's commercial, and they're at 90% of value, and then there's residential, which is typically around 50% of their value. So you're only paying tax on about half. When we grow commercial, it has a great impact of heavily balancing out that tax request. Norwalk has been predominantly residential. You all know that, but we're starting to see some major changes on the commercial side, which certainly benefits what we can do in the county. I'll use this as a time to thank you for the use of the ARPA funds to help us grow our certified site. Michael Foods and Windsor Windows, without help of the county, those two projects would not have happened. Just those two projects alone are over $50 million in new value in the county. So thank you for the use of that ARPA for allowing us to extend that. We're continuing to move forward with the property owner on getting that land turned into a certified site. We've started the process with Iowa Economic Development Authority. We're doing plans for the new sewer that's going to serve that area and some road and water improvements. And if you've been up to Norwalk recently and looked over towards Windsor Windows and Michael Foods, you'll see now on the south side of Delaware, there's dirt moving, and there's plans for several new commercial structures out there.
Oh, that's great. Good. Do you have any prospects for those new sites at all?
Yes, although,
And I'm not asking who, but
yeah, our economic development director is pretty particular about what information she gives me, because I tell her, if you give it to me, I'm going to tell people.
right.
So sometimes being transparent is not good, because then they keep secrets from me. But I can't tell you the names of them, but I will say that they have several already that want to be there. One of them, they're talking about, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's essentially it's commercial or industrial warehousing space. So if you own a business and you just need to be able to operate your business out of some place that you want to lease or rent, essentially it's like a storefront, but more on an industrial basis.
Oh, that's great. Quick question here up on the Norwalk Central project. Where are you in terms of being able to see some commercial growth coming out of that as well? And in particular, any hotel prospects coming out of that?
Yes, that one I can tell you because Marriott presented to the city. So we have a Marriott hotel that is planning. They closed on their property. They've been doing site plan review. Starbucks, they received a site plan approval. And there are several other, well, Fairway, they announced that they're going to be building their new store in that area. There's another hotel that is negotiating with a nearby property owner. I can't tell you what flag that is at this point. And then, I mean, there's really been a lot of other small, like business front. Mm-hmm. There was a car wash talking about the area. So a lot of commercial activity. When they actually start construction, probably won't be closer until, I would say, the end of 23 or possibly the beginning of 24.
Right.
And Mark, we have a meeting set up with you, DT McGee and I. He's our superintendent of Norwalk Community School District. And we planned on meeting with Mark, being our main area representative, just to kind of give you a little bit of background about the path and the trend that the city and school has been on in the past, just put that information in your brain so you can share it with the others down here with the supervisor meetings.
Great. Look forward to it.
Excellent. Any other questions for me?
None from me.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for the update, Luke.
Thank you. I
Appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks.
Anything? Okay, the next item on the agenda is to consider the approval of the value payment system contract. Preferred vendor GEO Snyder online permitting system with possible action.
Good morning.
Hi, Joelle. How are you?
Morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm coming to you this morning to ask for your approval and the request to implement the VPS value payment system, which is a preferred vendor with GEO Schneider permitting, so that we can continue to do online permitting for our different permitting requests across different departments in the county. The counties that are included with this request are obviously the Health Services Department, our Environmental Health Program, Zoning, Engineers Department, and the Attorney's Department, and possibly Conservation.
We've been through this a few times.
We have,
And I
yep.
think you brought this back.
I did, and we finally have the corrected, updated version of the contract, and I submitted it to you, and in it, basically, it's 2.75 for every online transaction and 2.50% for every over-the-counter transaction. There's no additional cost for it, other than the cost for the readers, for the credit card readers.
Any discussion from the board on this contract?
Ms. Bowman, has this been looked over by legal? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the value payment system, VPS contract with the preferred vendor, GEO Snyder.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Heater.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joelle. The next item on our agenda, and for everybody here, we've only got 3 or 4 more items, and then we'll get to your public comments, and we're welcome to hear them, and we are looking forward to it, and just bear with us as we work through what we have to do here per code. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is to consider the reappointment request from Thomas Nicholson and Trevor Radosevich to the Condemnation Compensation Commission, owner of city or town property with possible action. And the applications are in your packet. And are there any comments or questions about this agenda item from the board?
I would move a reappointment of Thomas Nicholson and Trevor Radosevich to the Condemnation Compensation Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Heater.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is the budget report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so starting off with the expenses, we are about 58% through our fiscal year currently. So I've got some items highlighted here that I am watching for, and most of them, if not all of them, will be included in an upcoming amendment. These are all items that, we don't have any new items this month. We've got nutrition with the wages and benefits linked to the Justice Center. For district court, we have the Doring property lease termination fee. That was a little higher than budgeted. Capital projects, we had budgeted for those to complete in fiscal year '22. So that'll need amended this fiscal year for the completion of the Justice Center. General services, we had an accrued audit fee. And we also front load a lot of our expenses under general services because we pay for our insurance at the beginning of the year. And then juvenile probation will definitely need an amendment. We've got an increase in service fees over fiscal year '22. Any questions about the expenses? So we're sitting at, like I said, we're 58% through the year. Our grand total is at 63% of the year, but again, the reason that we're a little higher is mostly from those capital projects that were budgeted to be complete last fiscal year. When we take the capital projects out, we're 53% through our expenses for the year.
And the juvenile probation expenses kind of high. Did you hit on that, Megan?
So they were just the shelter detention process fees. That's one of the departments where we kind of just look at history to budget for. So it's just higher than it has been historically.
Okay. Okay.
And then if we go over to revenues, again, we should be about 58% of our revenues, and we're at 66%, so that's great. Just a couple here. The auditor's office, we still haven't received the election revenue that's been budgeted at 16,000. And then mental health, because that moved to the state. So that will be amended down. And then those will sit a little bit more on par of where they should be for the year. Any questions about the revenues?
I have no questions. Do my colleagues have anything for Megan?
And then on the last page, we've got our fund balances. You can see our general basic is down a little bit. We did budget for the general basic fund to go down. And as we've been going through the budget process, it doesn't look like it will decrease as much as what we had previously budgeted. Nutrition, again, with the Justice Center expenses, I'm keeping a close eye on that to make sure that we keep enough funds in that budget. Other than that, you can see the mental health fund obviously went down when that moved to the state. And our capital projects funds continue to go down as we finish those capital projects.
Okay.
Hey, Darren,
Yes.
you've got way too many people for this to be in here in this room. Is there any way you can move them down?
We want to be heard. We want to be heard.
It's, that's code.
Okay.
I mean, if you can move them down to the downstairs or one of the
You know,
others, they can hear.
I think, I think that with this amount of attention to the tax situation, which I would love an opportunity to talk about, to kind of nip this in the bud. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what our board's position is on this, but perhaps the best thing to do is to reschedule this to a bigger place so everybody can be heard. No. Hey, hold on, everybody. Hold on a second. Just please hold on. Let's have a civil discussion. We can do it anytime you'd like. When do you want to do it?
Have a little bit of a notice, more than 12, 14, 16 hours, and perhaps not have something this huge in the middle of a workday.
Well, we're happy to do it. The communication about what's going on with taxes is very, very questionable, okay? What this board's position,
Taxes today, sir.
no, we're not voting on that today.
I at least am under the understanding that there will be a vote taken by you today.
No,
No,
that's absolutely,
that's
no,
misinformation.
that is not accurate.
Question, maybe half of us or three-quarters of us can go.
There will be no vote today on budget stuff. There will be no vote. It is not scheduled, and there will be proper notice be made for that. But today, there's no vote on budget.
And there's no proposal from the Board of Supervisors
No
on a
proposal for
rural
tax levy
basic
change.
tax levy rate. We made no proposal to the community on an 80% tax increase. That is not what this board has done, so. That's a great question. Do we?
Wait a minute, mine is a safety issue,
Okay,
and mine's 100% safety, so this is not acceptable.
okay.
So we either have to do something now, or my people will come in and we'll move them out.
We have absolutely no choice but to reschedule this meeting, and we can put a statement out. So,
That's fine.
What's going on the other?
Mr. Chair, I would move for adjournment so that we can deal with this in a more appropriate manner.
A lot of people took a lot of time off right now.
well, safety is the number one consideration.
Exactly. Let's go to the auditorium.
What are our options? I'd love to explain this tax situation to these people. I think I can do it in 10 minutes, and we can absolutely be done with, we can at least give them the information.
No, I'm not going to give you 10 minutes. We'll move them out to another room. If you've got access to another room, let's move them to another room so they can hear.
Can half these people sit in the auditorium for 10 minutes and then move half in and half out, and we can have this discussion?
However you want to do that. That's not up to me. My issue is the safety and all the egress.
I think once they hear what we have to say, this problem is not a problem any longer.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Finish what's on the agenda.
You give me the direction on where you want them to go, and we'll make them go.
Let's just go to the auditorium. You are not going to get anything resolved by moving it to another day.
Well, if we move half the people to the auditorium now for 10 minutes, talk, okay,
Everybody go.
Look,
okay.
if we don't do this right now, move to the auditorium, we will have people in here that will remove us out because it is a safety violation. If there were a fire, you would die. So let's go to the auditorium.
I put a motion on it.
They're not gonna go without somebody explaining to them what's going on.
Okay. Mark made a motion to adjourn this meeting. I'm going to second that motion to adjourn this meeting. Roll call, please.
McIntyre? No. Heater?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye. Okay, this meeting's adjourned.
No, they just said up there. They're not adjourning us, they're quitting the board meeting so that they can speak to us downstairs.
Okay.
So that's what that was.
I'm happy to talk, I'm happy to talk to people down in the auditorium. If you want to go downstairs, say.